From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang and here are the news. On the top story, Filipinos can now earn degrees through non-traditional means after Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. signed the law institutionalizing the Expanded Tertiary Education Equivalency and Accreditation Program or ETEEAP. Republic Act 12124 or the ETEEAP Act allows Filipinos, especially working professionals, to finish college education for career advancement. The ETEEAP will identify, assess, validate, and assign equivalent undergraduate level and special graduate programs of prior learning from formal, non-formal, and informal learning systems and relevant work experiences to qualified individuals for the grant of appropriate academic degrees. The Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, will serve as the lead agency in implementing ETEEAP. Its functions include deputizing higher education institutions, or HEIs, with academic degrees to be opened for the ETEEAP, developing standards for a diversified mode of assessing skills, values, knowledge, and levels of competence, and granting or revocation of HEI's authority to implement the ETEEAP. The CHED is also tasked with monitoring and evaluating the implementation of the ETEEAP by deputized HEIs, convening broad-based and interagency consultation meetings, and setting standard fees and other administrative charges for accreditation that will contribute to ETEEAP's special account. To ensure the effective implementation of ETEEAP, the Office of Programs and Standards Development, or OPSD, under CHED, will be strengthened to serve as a permanent technical secretariat for carrying out the new law's functions. Filipino citizens, whether residing in the Philippines or abroad, may apply for equivalency and accreditation if they satisfy the requirements. Applicants should be at least 23 years old at the time of application. They should have completed a secondary school program, as evidenced by a high school diploma or a result of the Philippine Educational Placement Test, or Alternative Learning System Accreditation and Equivalency Assessment and Certification stating that the individual concerned is qualified to enter college. They must also have at least 5 years of aggregate work experience in the industry or related to the academic degree program or discipline where equivalency of learning is sought.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. wants a long-term response plan to ensure the safety of residents affected by the eruption of Canlaon volcano in Negros Island. According to the Presidential Communications Officer, PCO, the plan includes identifying safe evacuation sites and establishing permanent relocation areas for those displaced by the disaster. In a meeting in Malacañang on Tuesday, the President emphasized the need to keep the composition of the planned National Task Force on Canlaon small, with the Department of National Defense Office of Civil Defense, or DND-OCD, taking the lead role. The Chief Executive highlighted the importance of moving residents out of danger zones and constructing large secure evacuation centers to protect them in the event of future eruptions. President Marcos also acknowledged the strong collaboration between national and local governments, which has been crucial in providing assistance to affected areas. Likewise, The president urged concerned agencies to continue supporting the localities. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS, reported that the eastern side of Canlaon volcano is still inflating, at least at the upper slopes, with 9 tremors recorded in the past 24 hours. An explosive eruption occurred on December 9, 2024.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. approved the 700 million pesos funding for the establishment of Child Development Centers, or CDCs, in 4th and 5th class municipalities. In a sectoral meeting in Malacañang with the 2nd Congressional Commission on Education, or ADCOM-2, and other concerned agencies, the President said daycare centers can also be CDCs as the kids are there. ADCOM-2, a national commission tasked to undertake a comprehensive national assessment and evaluation of the performance of the education sector, has asked the President to allocate 700 million pesos in the next 3 years to provide low-income villages access to early childhood development initiatives. The Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, committed to fund the establishment of CDCs for this year. The 700 million pesos, which will be coursed through the Local Government Support Funds, or LGSF, will finance the development of CDCs for every municipality, Education Secretary Juan Edgardo Sani Angara said during the meeting. According to ADCOM-2's Year 2 report, around 5,800 villages still do not have CDCs despite a 1990 law requiring each barangay to have at least one. Some 229 of them belong to low-income LGUs. During the meeting, it was also noted that ADCOM-2 will work with the Commission on Higher Education, Department of the Interior and Local Government, and the Early Childhood Care and Development Council to increase the number of early childhood education graduates in regions identified to be lacking. This is in line with the ADCOM-2's call to fix the foundations of the education system through early childhood education, nutrition, and early grade numeracy and literacy. ADCOM-2 Executive Director Dr. Carol Marquis said by fixing the foundations, nutrition, early childhood education, literacy, and numeracy by grade 3, this will ensure that reforms are strategic, targeted, and enduring. The Chief Executive meanwhile underscored the importance of addressing the challenges in education. He thanked President Marcos and the DBM for the swift action on their funding request.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang announced that Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has terminated the appointment of Presidential Security Command, or PSC Commander Major General Jesus Nelson Morales. Palace Press Officer and Presidential Communications Office, or PCO, Undersecretary Claire Castro confirmed to Palace reporters the termination of Morales' designation as PSC head starting Tuesday. Castro said Morales will be replaced by Brigadier General Peter Burgoño, who will serve as acting PSC commander on the same day Morales was terminated. Morales served as head of the PSC in 2023. Also in 2023, President Marcos tapped Burgoño as the commander of the Philippine Army's Army Intelligence Regiment. Formerly known as the Presidential Security Group, the PSC is a unit under the Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, mandated to provide protection escort for the President, Vice President, and their immediate families, as well as honor guard duties for visiting dignitaries. The PSC is stationed at Malacañang Palace in Manila, the official residence of the President. Members of the PSC also accompany the Chief Executive during both domestic and overseas trips.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news, Philippine Ambassador to United States Jose Manuel Romualdez said the Philippine government will bring up its interest to revive talks on a free trade agreement, or the FTA, with the U.S. once the first meeting between Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and U.S. President Donald Trump pushes through in April or May. In an interview, the envoy said there is a good chance that the U.S. government would pursue bilateral FTAs with countries under the Trump administration. Romualdez said Manila and Washington, D.C. have already discussed about a possible bilateral FTA during the first Trump administration, but talks were stalled with the Biden administration's disinterest to sign new preferential trade deals. Both leaders have already indicated interest to meet in person when they spoke before the inauguration of Trump. The envoy earlier said Manila will also convey its interest to import liquefied natural gas from Alaska as the U.S. government sets its sights on reviving the long-delayed $44 billion gas pipeline project. Ahead of the meeting, the envoy conveyed optimism that the Philippines-U.S. relations would remain strong under the new U.S. leader, noting it was during the first Trump administration that the alliance was described as ironclad. On the part of Manila, he said the Marcos administration would continue engaging the U.S. while ramping up efforts to strengthen the country's economy and defense.
Dateline Malacañang.
At least 80 Filipinos have received deportation notices from United States authorities as the new administration pushes through with its plan to kick out illegal aliens. In an interview, Philippine Ambassador to the U.S. Jose Manuel Romualdez said the Filipinos are not detained and still have the opportunity to legalize their stay. Romualdez added that some of them have already departed voluntarily. The U.S. government's crackdown on undocumented migrants began immediately after President Donald Trump was sworn into office in January 20. Earlier this month, the U.S. deported illegal aliens from Africa and Asia, some reportedly from China and Vietnam, to Central American nations that are acting as third country stopovers. Romualdez said none of the Filipino deportees have been put on similar deportation flights to another state so far. The Department of Foreign Affairs earlier said it is ready to extend necessary assistance to Filipinos who may be affected by the immigration crackdown.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine Presidential Communications Officer PCO Secretary Jay Ruiz said he has no regrets taking on the new job as the head of the government's lead communications arm, adding that he is determined to intensify the fight against fake news. He made a statement in a palace press briefing as he lamented that he himself has become a victim of fake news in just less than a week since he took over the agency. Ruiz, who took his oath as PCO Secretary on February 24, said he has no intention to dignify the fake news about him, but stressed that he has to refute these allegations to protect his honor and integrity. He said he decided not to file a lawsuit against the purveyors of fake news as he does not want to get distracted by the issues thrown against him. Ruiz said he would remain focused on fulfilling his mandate of delivering the right message to the Filipino people and making them informed about the Marcos administration's policies and programs. He also urged the media to help the PCO in combating misinformation and disinformation and called on everyone to be guardians of truth, emphasizing that the voice of truth should be louder than lies. Aside from intensifying the fight against fake news, Ruiz said he is also determined to push reforms within the PCO, including streamlining of its organizational structure.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine National Security Advisor or NSA Eduardo Año called Chinese claims that Palawan was historically part of China as baseless and revisionist. In a statement, Año said Palawan has always been and will always remain an integral part of the Republic of the Philippines and that no historical record, legal precedent, nor credible evidence support the claim that Palawan was ever under Chinese sovereignty. Año said archaeological findings, centuries of indigenous and colonial governance, and internationally binding treaties such as the 1898 Treaty of Paris and the 1900 Treaty of Washington unequivocally established the Philippines' ownership of Palawan. He also added that the claim that Palawan was once named Zhenghe Island is an outright fabrication with no basis. Año said they are currently tracing the source of this information information which first appeared in Chinese social media app Weibo and Red Note, a short video platform like TikTok. But the NSA stressed that they do not come from official government sites, nor have they been carried by Chinese mainstream media outlets. He also said the National Security Council is urging the Filipino people and the international community to remain vigilant against disinformation campaigns and rely on verified historical and legal sources rather than propaganda designed to advance a geopolitical agenda at the expense of truth.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippine Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, has forged a memorandum of agreement with the civic organization to enhance support and protection for overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs. In a news release, the DMW said the MOA signed with the Global Filipino Movement, or GFM, would benefit OFWs worldwide through programs that would help improve their welfare and well-being. Both DMW Secretary Hans Leo Kakdak and GFM Chairman Efraim Tendero expressed full support for the partnership during the signing on Monday in Mandaluyong City. Under the agreement, the DMW and GFM committed to collaborating on key initiatives such as the establishment of OFW help desks in various local government units, or LGUs, nationwide, including expanded information sharing. The GFM also committed to assisting in the conduct of migration seminars, anti-illegal recruitment campaigns, and financial literacy sessions for OFWs and their families. Moreover, the partnership would include collaboration in providing legal assistance to OFWs who need it, psychological support, skills development programs, and LGU staff training to enhance the overall assistance provided to Filipino migrant workers. Outreach efforts will also be intensified through various social media platforms, the mass media, and community engagement to reach more OFWs worldwide. Kakdak, meanwhile, underscored the significance of the collaboration in delivering better services for OFWs. The GFM is a non-stock, non-profit Christian foundation that has extended ministry services to the OFWs and their families both internationally and locally.
Dateline Malacañang.
As the country's inflation rate continued to slow down in February 2025, the government pledged to continue its proactive efforts to ensure adequate food supplies in the short term while steadily raising agricultural productivity, according to the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA. The Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, reported March 5th that the country's headline inflation rate eased to 2.1% in February, down from 2.9% in January 2025. This is the lowest recorded since September 2024 at 1.9%. This was driven by a slowdown in both food, 2.6% from 4%, and non-food inflation, 1.7% from 2.2%. Notably, rice registered a sharper deflation, negative 4.9% from negative 2.3%, with prices decreasing since July 2024 on a month-on-month basis amid easing international prices and reduced tariffs. Vegetable inflation decelerated to 7.1% from 21.1% in the previous month. These offset a faster inflation in meat, 8.1% from 6.4%. Inflation for the bottom, 30%, also fell to 1.5% in February 2025, lower than the headline inflation rate and down from 2.4% in January this year. NEDA Secretary Arsenio Balisacan said the government will sustain its efforts to keep inflation low and manageable to protect the purchasing power of Filipinos. As we expect 6 to 13 typhoons to develop from March to August 2025, the Department of Agriculture, or DA, will implement the La Niña Action Plan to restore agricultural productive capacity in areas likely to be affected by continuous rainfall, flooding, and landslides. Meanwhile, to mitigate the impact of rising fuel prices on farmers, the DA implemented the Fuel Assistance to Farmers Project. As of January 28, 2025, 74.3% of the targeted beneficiaries for 2023 have received fuel assistance cards. For 2024, 54.1% of the targeted beneficiaries have been processed for funding. Furthermore, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. signed Executive Order, or EO number 83, on February 13, 2025, granting real property tax relief to independent power producers operating under build, operate, transfer contracts with government-owned or controlled corporations. The EO eased the financial burden on IPPs and helped ensure a stable electricity supply. In the livestock industry, measures to address the ASF are being accelerated. The Interagency Committee on Inflation and Market Outlook and the Economic Development Group advised the DA Bureau of Animal Industry to speed up the collection of post-vaccination results from 28 hog farms and quickly submit the analyses to the Food and Drug Administration. This will help accelerate product registration for the commercial use of the African swine fever vaccine. For the medium term, the Department of Science and Technology has funded the brisk response through in-location diagnostics and genomic sequencing system for animal disease testing and vaccine research project, which is expected to be completed in August 2026.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippine National Food Authority, or NFA, said it is implementing various strategies to decongest spaces in its warehouses for local palay or unhusked rice procurement nationwide. During the Bagong Pilipinas Ngayon interview, NFA Administrator Larry Lacson said these moves are necessary amid a slow release of rice stocks to local government units or LGUs. Around 35% of warehouse spaces may be freed with this strategy, while the empty areas can be occupied by new purchased harvest. Lacson said the NFA is also coordinating with private stakeholders and LGUs that can help provide temporary warehouses. Lacson earlier urged LGUs to speed up procurement of NFA rice from Department of Agriculture through Food Terminal Incorporated under the Food Security Emergency for Rice. To date, only San Juan and Navotas in the National Capital Region and Camarines Sur in the Bicol region have secured initial NFA rice release. Around 70 LGUs, however, signified their intent to purchase NFA rice. Among the identified causes of slow NFA rice release are procedural delays, need for local resolutions, and lack of funds.
Dateline Malacañang.
Finally, for Dateline Malacañang, the Government Service Insurance System, or GSIS, announced the approval of a policy allowing part-time medical professionals at the University of the Philippines, or UP, to count their combined service hours toward retirement benefits, addressing a long-standing gap in government service recognition. Under Board Resolution number 88, approved on September 24, 2024, part-time professors are at the UP College of Medicine, UPCM, who also serve as medical specialists at the Philippine General Hospital, or PGH, without compensation or vice versa, will have their service hours fully recognized in government employment records. GSIS President and General Manager Vic Veloso and the reform said the reform acknowledges the vital role of UP doctors in both healthcare and education. The reform corrects a previous limitation caused by the lack of plantilla positions at UP Manila, which led to specialists taking on an unpaid teaching roles or clinical duties. It formally recognizes UPCM and PGH as a single employer entity under the UP Manila Chancellor's Office, allowing service time across both institutions to be consolidated for GSIS computation. UP Manila Chancellor Michael T. and other university officials commended the move, presenting GSIS with a certificate of appreciation during a recent ceremony at the GSIS headquarters in Pasay City. The policy change was welcomed by medical professionals, many of whom have spent decades balancing patient care and teaching without full retirement credit. Año Nuevo cited his 34 years of service, including 28 years split between clinical and teaching roles, which previously would not have been fully counted toward his government service record. The policy change is expected to benefit surgeons, cardiologists, and anesthesiologists, radiologists, pharmacology experts, and others who split their time between clinical duties and PGH or at PGH and teaching duties at UPCM. Recognizing the additional service hours of UP doctors highlights GSIS' ongoing efforts to improve the benefits system and ensure that the sacrifices and contributions of public servants are properly valued and compensated.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that is all for today's Dateline Malacañang for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. This has been Bea Gaza-de Guzman.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.